welcome to another episode of the Growth League podcast. I'm here with my guest, Kevin Jaskolka. He's the Senior VP of Marketing at Checkmate. Kevin, man, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So quickly, for those that don't know, Checkmate, what problems do you solve for who? Why are you guys best suited to serve that market?
Yeah, so restaurant chains, right? And the first problem we solved, it was interesting, right? A few years ago, you remember you'd go into a restaurant and either at the hostess stand or maybe towards closer to the back of house, you'd see all these tablets. And we affectionately called that tablet hell. Now, if you look now, there's very few tablets. So what that was going on there was you had tablets literally from DoorDash, Grubhub, Uber Eats, maybe Slice, Postmates at the time. There might be 4, 5, 8 tablets sitting there next to a POS station. So those were all orders, delivery orders coming in from those providers, and then somebody would have to manually type those orders into the system. Orders were late, orders were wrong, bad, just tablet hell, literally, right? Yeah. So we created the interface to take that third-party delivery and plug it directly into the point of sale, so it went straight to the kitchen after it was accepted. So that was the first problem we solved, and you can imagine during the big COVID pivot for restaurants, you really saw the acceleration of digital, right? So not only just in the third-party space, which was massive, but also around first-party. So that's when you might go to the restaurant chain's website or have a phone app, you're ordering there. So we acquired a company a couple years ago to get into that space, right? And again, the story here is kind of this proliferation of digital channels, third-party, first-party. Now there's a company called EasyCater. They're third-party B2B catering for the most part.
Right.
There's also a first-party catering channel, so more and more digital channels. Add-on kiosk, scan order pay was big for a while, digital menu boards. And now in the drive-thru, if your only solution for the drive-thru today is a headset and a POS terminal, you're pretty far behind. So in the last year, we acquired a voice AI company to do AI drive-thru and speed up that. So you got all these digital channels. Now, what's interesting is each one of these digital channels either has its own menu or a subset of a menu that was traditionally and still is managed by the POS, the point of sale system, but there's a ton of friction in there. Menu management's a huge problem that is still being solved, and we have a system called Everywhere to solve that. So imagine you've got a restaurant chain, 1,000 restaurants, and just say, for example, that other 500 in your location footprint, that was an acquisition, and they're in a different POS system.
Yeah.
So you might be running 1,000 locations, 2 POS systems. On top of that, you got to figure out how to plug in nutrition information. You've got a database of product shots. You got limited time offers. You've got regional offers, seasonal offers, right? And then you've got all these proliferation of digital channels.
Yeah.
So the permutations there is incredibly hard to take care of.
Yeah. And the breakpoints, I guess, are magnified. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So we've got the channels that the consumer interfaces with, and then we have the menu management system to make it easy, consolidate the tech stack, plug it back to the POS directly into the kitchen, whether that's for location 123 in Utica, New York, or location 578 that's rolling out a local variation of a salad bowl in Ventura, California. It all works.
Right. So what compelled you, or what drew you to take up this posting at Checkmate? Why was that the opportunity?
Yeah, so I was working for a point of sale company called PAR Technologies a few years ago, one lifetime ago, and they were a partner, right? And we did all the POS work, right? So point of sale system, and then we had, and again, so about 2014, 2018 timeframe, delivery was really starting to ramp. Customers were like, well, what are you doing for delivery? What's your delivery strategy, PAR? What's your delivery strategy? You're like, it's not even remotely on the roadmap. It's not even interesting. It's not even something we could take on with all the other requests we have. So we have partners, and Checkmate was one of those partners. And the founder, Vishal Agrawal, was just doing a bang up job. I mean, he was very well aligned, very easy to partner with, great products. Was really drawn to him not only for the business he was building, but the type of person he was. So it's easy for an executive to work with an executive, but it's really telling how they treat year one level down. Right. And he was always great with my team. So when the opportunity to join the company came up in 2021, I was really excited to see it, and kind of the rest is history.
That's great. And when you first landed there, and maybe fast forwarding to now, like how would you best describe, um, maybe in non-marketing speak, how would you best describe from a business perspective your mandate, the way you see your mandate to be? Like at the end of the day, if you could say job well done, that meant you created or facilitated what
Yeah,
specifically for Checkmate?
there's a million ways to answer that question. The first one that came to mind is, in SaaS marketing, you have kind of three mandates. It's acquire business,
Right,
retain business, and expand business.
right.
And if I can get those three things working at the same time and balance them out,
Yeah,
that's a good thing. So that's still a work in progress, right?
yeah,
we're 3.5 years in and we're still pushing. Um, but yeah, that at the end of the day, that'll be a success for me. Being able to manage those three things, we continue to grow, and we do. We continued, since I've been here, we've doubled twice in terms of location count.
what do you feel qualifies you for the job? What's your superpower that Checkmate gets access to?
I made a ton of mistakes in my career, and I learned from them, and I try not to repeat them.
Checkmate's not paying for the mistakes they
Yeah,
get.
exactly, that I made in the past. Yeah, 100%. So, the beauty is of having a couple decades of marketing on top of carrying a bag and a quota for a while. Not just a pure marketer, not just a pure sale. I've done both, including sales management and all in high tech. So that's good, and a lot of intangibles from being an Army officer for 4 years.
Yeah.
So taking that learning on, that sense of execution and being able to drive things to a conclusion, and just a really, don't want to brag too much, but arguably I've done pretty much every
Yeah.
role in marketing, from demand gen, branding. I mean, the only thing I don't spend a lot of time doing right now is visual design, because I'm still struggling with stick figures.
So, but beside design, what would you be willing to admit as your Achilles heel as a leader of people in a function?
I'm going to stick with no, visuals. That's a tough one. That's a fair one. Probably without giving the same old cop out answer like, "Hey, I care too much," but just being incredibly driven, not as an Achilles heel, but sometimes of having blinders on to other things, right?
Right.
So when I get into hyper execution mode, it tunnel vision starts sitting in, and it's always important to kind of, using an Army analogy, pop up out of the
Yeah.
foxhole, get away from the periscope, look up above the commander's hatch, and see
Yeah.
what's going on, and get a big picture of things. There's times when you can over focus on the tree in front of you and forget to look at the forest and what might have changed.
Mm.
And I think
Go ahead.
every
Sorry.
marketing leader, every sales leader, every SaaS executive needs to be able to do that.
Right. Kind of go between the clouds and the dirt multiple times during the day
Yep.
or week.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good way to put it.
What do you lean on most often from your experience in the Army to be the best marketing leader you can be?
No, man, a lot. First, I'd say is integrity more than anything, right? Always important. A lot of good leadership lessons in just being an Army officer. I mean, everything from, hey, my paycheck's not right, to, hey, Lieutenant, my mom died. I got to get home and I don't have money. How do I do that? And everything in between. There's not a lot you're going to face in the corporate environment that you're not going to have been prepared for by being in the military. I mean, they're just the problems are different, right? And the level of things that can happen in the military are a lot different than what can happen in the
I
corporate
would
side.
I would never attempt to make a comparison between sports and the Army, but I lean a lot on that in playing, university high level sports. It's like, I mean, there's nothing I'm going to face here that I didn't face on the field, getting screamed at by coaches and
Yeah,
you know,
exactly. And
70,000 fans.
there's a lot of places you can find that type of discipline. Not just in collegiate sports, but absolutely. I mean, even if people do martial arts, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, Thai boxing, you can find it in those arenas too.
Tell me about your team, Kevin, because when you're leading a function like this, it's not just leading a function on paper, but it's people and humans and their different desires and their unique zones of genius and the way they're made up. Like, tell me about your experience and your approach or your style of bringing people together in pursuit of a business case.
Yeah, that's interesting because we're at a time where that those teams are changing. It's not just people. Now it's people and AI agents
Yeah.
and large language models and everything in between, and that's changing a lot of the matrix. And we're going to be figuring that out for the next 2 or 3 years, right?
Yeah.
How all that falls and what actually worked and didn't. It's kind of that same time point where, hey, the typewriter is no longer here and the computer is now here, and well, what does a word processor mean versus a typewriter? And does that mean everybody loses a job, or do the jobs change? But right now the team is 3 people,
Yeah.
and we're quickly discovering that the team of 3 can act like a team of 6 and possibly 8, right? If you take a marketing department in a typical B2B SaaS company, you start with the different functional vertical areas like demand gen, lead gen, PR, Marcom, events, planning, visual design, product marketing. A lot of that stuff in the center, visual design is a little trickier. You can consolidate a lot of that
Hmm.
well through AI usage.
Yeah.
So you still need that team of 8 to 10 to do the work of 3 or 4. And I think we're figuring that out. And we're experimenting a lot with that right now, and actually seeing a lot of productivity stuff going on. So, for example, deep account research to do ABM
Yeah.
might take 8 to 12 hours to really deeply and appropriately research an account.
Yeah.
Old way, right? You got to go through all the sites, all the press releases. You got to listen to the calls if it's a publicly traded company. Now I do 3 iterations through Perplexity, 15 minutes, deep search. I've got a 10-page document completely formatted with citations if I want to go deeper or check the information that's ready to start plugging in for campaign development.
Yeah.
Blogs, I mean, generally what, 2.5 to 3 hours to write a blog manual,
Yeah.
research, write, draft, You can plug it in through a well-trained LLM, get something solid done, post it in an hour.
Yeah.
I could run it through make.com, N8N, or relay.app
Yeah.
through an automation. Run the entire process from, hey, grab this topic, research it, write a brief, write the draft, SEO check it, do a final one. By the way, write the hooks for LinkedIn, X, and Meta, use the right terms here,
Yeah.
and drop it in Webflow for me, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Now, your quality is going to vary on each one of those, and Google would argue some might be better, and how readable and such are they, but those are the trade-offs you can make now with AI.
What's been the relationship in terms of navigating that effective and solid balance between AI and your lean team, and what is the dynamics of working or the ways of working right now between your artificial team and your blood and skin team?
Well, probably a mistake or a learning a lot of companies can take is everybody is using an LLM. The
Yep.
question is it the company LLM? So if George, Sarah, or Mike leave with their fully trained LLM, okay, you might have lost some intellectual property there for sure, but the company doesn't have it anymore either to use.
Yeah.
So, kind of first and foremost, hey, get all those individual chat GPTs and Perplexities and Claudes and centralize them on a company-wide pro plan.
Yeah.
On standardize on one or standardize on all 3. Personally, I'm finding early use cases and reasons why I choose to use all 3 and go kind of best in class for different solutions.
If you mentioned sort of in the early V1 stages of whether it be an ABM research project or maybe it's an actual piece of external facing marketing material, if there are time savings, obviously in the creation of this V1,
Mm-hmm.
where do you look to deploy that time savings to create more value downstream? Is it like through the manual check and up leveling it from a strategy standpoint? Where do you, if you've earned this time saving, where do you
Yeah.
spend it?
So, and that's it, right? So, the way to think of it is on a team of 2 or 3, they got to be kind of full stack thinkers. They're more strategy people level, right?
Yeah.
Hey, here's what we need to get done. Here's conceptually the problem that needs to get done. Here's my vision on how I would do it. then let the agents go kind of figure it out.
Right.
Everybody says AI is coming for the jobs, but really AI is coming for the mundane tasks.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of mundane tasks in a marketing group.
Yeah.
There are. I mean, just the exercise, again, just everybody can identify with it. The exercise of writing a blog, especially on a blog in a big team where it's like maybe somebody researches it as an intern, they got to pass off this brief to somebody who's writing it. Then it's got to go to visual design, and okay, there's a lot of friction in that process, right? So you can eliminate a lot of that. So AI is not coming for everybody's job, but they are coming for all the mundane tasks.
Yeah, that's right.
On the HR side, right, you want a really good, well-written job description. Again, there's an example of something you can plug into a system and get 95% of it with a button push and have in a quarter of the time. So kind of back to your question, it's gonna remove a lot of the lower level taskings.
Yeah.
To allow for higher level thinking. In the same way, not unlike, when it's kind of contrary, you might have seen the report that says, LLMs are making everybody dumb.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, it's like, oh, okay. And I seem to remember at some point in time, and our CTO actually pointed this out. Hey, they used to say that about calculators, right? And when we were in grade school, if you like to use a calculator, you're not going to ever do math. You're going to be dumb for the rest of your life. It's like, no, not really.
Oh, totally. I mean, this is a topic that's just been beat to death, but yet it's still fascinating to talk about it. And it's like, I think it does make you dumb if you're relying on it to do the thing for you. But if you're relying on it to be a thinking partner, and it's making you a lot smarter. I mean, at least my experience with it.
Yeah, it's the thinking changes. It doesn't go away, but it changes and goes into a different bucket.
Yeah. And someone else was telling me that, like, let's say you have a subject matter expert, and there's a full stack thinker, there's strategic marketer, and a lot of times in producing V1 before AI, you would get to the point where you had to do all of the mundane stuff, and now you're tired, so you're not able to unleash your genius to round out the edges and put the nuance on this piece. So then we started prioritizing just ship it, just get things done.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because you're spending your whole time. Anyways, shifting gears a little bit, I want to hear about your thoughts and approach on the role you play in an organization, a large organization, where you need to educate and advocate for what the marketing system and team is up to. And sometimes there's varying levels of understanding about what we're doing. There's varying levels of buy-in, but what's your role and responsibility, the way you see it, and your process in which penetrating across the organization and really sharing the good news about what are we doing, what do we need from you, and what's the so what behind all this?
Yeah, well, the biggest tie-in is with sales. No surprise there, right? And marketing isn't divorced from the revenue process. They're the front end of the revenue process, and they enable the revenue process, right? Yeah. And that's on the acquisition side. They also need to be a big piece, and their next best friend is going to be the CS leader, making sure that we're retaining and expanding that revenue. So it's a conversation around how are you driving acquisition, right? And a part of that conversation goes back to what percentage of the overall sales effort is the marketing piece. And in SaaS, they'll argue somewhere between 30 to 50%. Now that's an interesting number, right? Because generally you're going to source funnel from three areas. You're going to source it from the rep, what they go get on their own, from partnerships, what the partner team brings in from the ecosystem, and then what marketing sources, and then how do you break out the attribution? I have never seen a company do really truly unambiguous multi-touch attribution incredibly well. So generally it's just like, guys, let's get single touch attribution down first, and we can go from there, right? I mean, so much has changed with data structures now, right? Because data is free. The basic definition of a lead, of a demographic, a contact information, you can prove interest, or at least some level there, really quick. But those are the main partners, obviously, and then explaining your metrics, right? LTV to CAC, lifetime value to acquisition cost, and keeping that in a good ratio. Working with finance to make sure the GL's tight and they're allocating appropriately. Sometimes, hey, you're on HubSpot. Well, okay, HubSpot's marketing. Everybody plug HubSpot into marketing. All right, well, there's a sales component to there. There might be a support component to that. Is that the way we're going to attribute it? How do you want to calculate it? What are we calculating? Making sure your costing structure is right. Same thing with trade shows. Every SaaS customer you get a trade show or an extra show that goes with it.
Yeah.
That shouldn't be against your acquisition LTV to CAC. And some of that can get pretty substantial in terms of annual spend. You want to make sure that that's tied to the retention part of the conversation, right? So what I'm painting here is, you align around the metrics, understand what's important to the company and how the company agrees in measuring it, and then you work off your kind of your benchmark. So again, kind of a 30 to 50% marketing funnel to overall pipeline.
Yeah.
Right. Again, but if that's closer to 50%,
right,
it can be interesting because then it makes you wonder, okay, are we as effective on the other two legs of that three-legged stool?
Yeah.
Marketing, partnerships, and what the reps bring in. So that's a lot. So I'll pause there.
Well, so do you, in your experience, or are you of the opinion that marketing should play the lead role in building the infrastructure out that's holistic and kind of moving from first touch to third touch, or is this the sales team's job? Like, talk to me about the dynamics you've seen between how do you work together, and who takes the lead in building the business case around how revenue gets generated?
A little bit depends on the company. You mentioned some of the tech there for a second. So Next IT Marketing's got the largest amount of tech overall. So that part of the conversation, the MarTech stack is generally marketing led. But for example, at PAR, I had a really good sales counterpart, and we'd sit down and we'd take last year's actual. You get the growth number from the company.
Yeah.
What do we want to grow by? And then you just start dissecting that from the top line revenue. Okay, well, what do we want to be in next year? All right, well, capacity planning, small business, channel, large enterprise. Here's what the reps can handle. Here's what the go-get's going to look like. Okay, well, then what does that turn into marketing commit? And you're literally building out a commit line.
Yeah.
Right. And then some either loose or very solid SLAs around it.
Yeah.
I will deliver X leads per month per channel, and they're going to look like this.
Right.
Sales is going to commit to doing Y, and to get through them. And here's how we have a conversation of if that breaks down, and here's how we get well, because we're all chasing the same number at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But you really got to go through it like that, right? And if there's a repeatable process in there, then you should be able to have a good conversation with the CFO to say, hey, here's the number, here's the capacity, here's how we plan on get it, here's what the serviceable market looks like, or the total market to get there.
Yeah.
Here's what the marketing plan would look like. Here's kind of where we need to get the budget.
Yeah.
To run that through. Here are the metrics that support the budget on the efficiency side, LTV to CAC being a big one of those.
Yeah.
And then how do you drive it? But again, I'm talking here all acquisition. Then how do you make sure that you're actually retaining the revenue you need to retain? And what does that look like working with CS? Yeah. And then how do you facilitate the expansion sale?
Okay, so it sounds like in that case, in that scenario, you and the sales lead were able to basically team up and essentially deliver a well-researched hypothesis to the CFO, and then I guess your execution becomes just validating that hypothesis or denying it.
Right. And adjusting along the way. Hey, this is working really well. Accelerate. Hey, this part's broken. Okay, let's give it another 2 months, or maybe let's back it off. And what channels are the best? What's interesting though is, again, the deeper you dig into an attribution measurement, the more the reality probably breaks down. Right.
Tell me more.
The more reality breaks down into not being really measurable, right? Because I'm like,
I see.
So here's an example. So we just closed a deal with a really great mid-sized company. Took 18 months. We brought him in as a contact out of a database. Started working it gently. Took 11 months to get to a meeting. Customer reached out to us and said, hey, let's meet. So they went from January 2024 to marketing started messing with it.
Yeah.
The customer outreaching for a meeting. Took a month to get qualified and going. So the deal started.
Yeah.
Through that next 6 months to close, probably at the 3-month mark, there was a pilot.
Yeah.
18 months to revenue.
And there's probably people that have come and gone in that period of time too. And
Two or three people came and gone during that period, and it's a testament to the system and to the kind of the process that you get there. But you know, this quarter to quarter idea that hey, you know, you, you did the webinar, you should have 5 deals done in 20
yeah,
days. Like, you better know your sales cycle.
yeah, yeah,
And we've got a lot of different products. We've got existing customers who are coming back in to buy more because they're multi-thousand location chain. They
yeah,
stand up at 100 new stores. They come to us. They say, "Well, what happened in that deal process?" It was instant. They just literally called to set up,
right,
and we went from open to close in 30 seconds.
yeah,
To hey, some of these things have a 6 month to a year-long sales process,
right.
and you got to be able to measure and be patient, and then factor that into the revenue forecast.
So more patience on the acquisition side, not as much patience required on the LTV growth.
Again,
Depend.
true, but product dependent,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Product dependent. If you're a product led sale and you're kind of like $0 or $5 at the beginning, that's
I
almost immediately hit. But yeah, a large enterprise sale on it's going to take a lot longer. And then that LTV to CAC is an important initial measurement, but it's not the full story, right? You
right,
can change that lifetime value based on your customer retention.
right.
I lengthen that out. My LTV goes up. I can spend more to acquire, or I put more content in there over time. I have a penetration product. I layer on 2 or 3 more products in that stack over the next year. And that's the beauty of a SaaS model. It's not all found in the acquisition. It's kind of managing that revenue bow tie,
Yeah, yeah,
right? Acquisition, the nice little middle of retention, and then the expansion.
yeah. Tell me about your ideal client lead and in this restaurant space. Like what are the pressures and things that are causing them the most pain and fear right now, and the biggest sources of anxiety, I guess, that you're leaning in to solve around. Like, tell me about the modern day mindset of the ICP that you're going after.
Yeah. So, quick answer first. It's probably a restaurant chain, 25 locations plus,
Yeah.
and we do anything from 2 to 3 locations all the way up to several thousand.
Okay.
But the enterprise is the sweet spot for us. And that problem is there's too much friction on the digital side for them to continue growing. For everything we talked about earlier, right? It's that 50, 100, 1,000, and the problems kind of scale and build accordingly. Location restaurant that wants to deploy more digital channels, and that just becomes really difficult as you factor locations and things and right different channels to work through. It's too hard to manage. So the tech stack all around that centralized menu becomes the growth in becomes the problem to growing further in digital. Now, like I said, the old days of you go into a kind of a burger QSR restaurant, and you got the drive-through, and you got 6 or 8 registers, and there's the area for the kids to play on the side, and everybody lingers there for an hour for lunch.
Yeah.
That's way gone, right?
Gone.
So, at best, you're probably looking at, especially some of the ones that are popping up around me here in Ventura and Oxnard, California. You get 2 or 3 drive-through lanes, and then again, the location's just more for a kind of perspective. You get 2 or 3 drive-through lanes. 2 might be for customers. One's strictly for delivery drivers.
Right.
There is no dining room.
Right.
It's a commercial kitchen. There might be a pickup window, and at best you're doing walk-in to do a tap on a kiosk, and you're going to pick it up at the window and you're going to go. So that whole model's changing, right?
Yeah.
And again, if the whole idea of the drive-through is, hey, I got a POS terminal and a headset, yeah, 1980 wants you to come back. So that doesn't hold anymore.
That tech stack solution, on one hand, you're saying is really the growth limiting, the marketing limiting, the lot of things limiting factor. And most multi-location restaurant brands have over time sort of calloused their tech stack with different suppliers and vendors and tools, and some are modern and some are antiquated, and it ends up being a dog's breakfast that ultimately gets in the way of efficiency, profitability, and growth, right?
Correct.
So is it? Yeah, it's a wild. And then you guys are in pretty big growth mode, as I understand it. So how are you finding the balance in terms of like growing fast and hard, but maintaining what got you here, why people come to you today, and taking care of what is at the same time?
Yeah, and that's the trick, right? So that's the reason we took out equity investment last year to help grow and work on the kiosk and the voice AI side, the drive-through business. So taking an investment to do that. We are at a point too now where we've got a lot of very large existing customers, which creates a very fertile ground for us to go work with for additional solutions while we continue to acquire new customers. So again, it's a balance between acquisition, retention, expansion, and you're always moving those levers as a SaaS company.
Hmm. Stepping away from specifically Checkmate now and getting more focused on Kevin, the person, the marketer. In the So not including things like KPI reports, attribution models, anything that you can put on a graph or a chart. What do you personally tend to rely on when you drive home from work or close your laptop for the day to know for sure, or with a pretty accurate sense, like I made impact today? What do you rely on in your gut to know I was the best version of myself as a marketing leader today?
Uh, there's simple things like how many boxes you should check off on the list, and how do those lists contribute to the bigger goal.
Yeah.
I'm a I'm a big kind of F5 browser refresh push button person to like to see, hey, how are the leads going today? How's the reporting going? Um, one superpower is being a pretty good HubSpot reporting whiz. So, pulling the metrics out of there and just seeing how the business tracks and grows, or where you have to adjust over time.
How do you need to lead people today in the dawn in the day of AI, where people need to be in their area of specialization, but they want to be a part of something and they want to see a linear relationship between what they're working on and the impact it creates? Like, how do we need to change as leaders of people?
Well, one thing is we're 100% remote company,
Yeah.
and we've got a fully owned subsidiary in India. So we're
Okay.
working multinationally. Um, there's a lot of things that go into that piece. So I'll give a couple highlights here. Adjusting time schedules to meet your other team members where they're at, and don't expect them to just be on the USA time because
Yeah.
you're working out of the US. It's stuff like, hey, because it is remote, being very clear with communication. Even little things like, hey, when you're on a Zoom or a Google Meet, camera's actually on, face-to-face contact. Making the most out of trade shows when you have them, because then it's not just about meeting the customers, being with the ecosystem, but being with each other at those events. And then how do you work and build up the matrix of the people who attend the shows from the company,
Right.
so they can have those interactions. It's the regional meetups. But yeah, I mean, things move fast. Context matters. It's even more so in a large company. So continuing to always stay grounded on what we're trying to accomplish, what marketing's trying to do is part of that. And yeah, hey, some things we'll see happen in fruition today, tomorrow, in the next 2-3 months. Some might take a year.
Yeah. You could write multiple books on how to create that culture and that togetherness in a remote team setup, right? We have a similar setup here. Kevin, kind of leave us with this. What is the number one problem or challenge that you are currently trying to figure out, and why is it important to have it solved?
Yeah, a lot of the and there's a few of them, but probably the biggest one right now is what it is to deal with all this AI stuff, and then I think that is big, right? And no, what does it all mean for everybody? So no, again, I'm kind of I don't think everybody loses their jobs to AI. I think it is very truly, hey, it's coming for the mundane tasks, and in 3 years, you might recall when, like, hey, I know how to use Microsoft Office was actually a line on somebody's resume.
Yeah, I remember.
Right. In 3 years, that's,
Yeah.
can use AI is going to be similar. But in that 3 years, as we go from, you know, lay it on the product adoption curve, early adopters, early majority, late majority, laggards, will be the laggards in the late majority. So how do you figure out, get on early, and then use these tools as a strategic advantage to push yourself in front? Because if you're not using them and you are a laggard, you are in a different world of hurt.
Tough for you, yeah.
Right. But it's going to be interesting from a perspective on where it all shakes out, because it is going to be largely deflationary in that it will drive prices down. Not so much from the cost perspective, but the barrier to entry to create a company is going to go down massively.
Totally.
So that solo entrepreneur can now act like 10 people.
Yeah.
Right. The cost of capital is starting up a business and getting through that first year or two, nothing. So there's going to be companies popping up in everybody's space.
Yeah.
Like that, right?
Best ideas and best execution of those ideas win.
Exactly.
Agnostic to your size or your whatever.
Exactly. So the revenue aligns with that as well. So take, for example, legal in that vertical, right? I can run and say, hey, ChatGPT, give me a contract. Here's other contracts that I've signed that look like this. Create me a strawman contract that's 80% of the way there.
Yeah.
So instead of having legal do all that hours in front of it, again, the tasks of reviewing and redlining a contract, that time is cut down to a fifth.
Yeah.
My payout to get that contract done is massively less. So now I'm down to a couple hours and a signing fee.
Yeah.
Guess where legal companies are now pushing more of their dollars into that signing fee, right? But these are the types of advantages that create lower barriers to entry for entrepreneurs who want to do something. So again, kind of back to I don't think it's fearful, but I certainly wouldn't want to be in that late majority or laggard space.
Well, the way you're talking about it now, it's you're definitely in the upper percentile. I think we should remember that, right? Kevin, why do you love what you're doing?
It's fun. I mean, the hospitality industry is great. It really is great. I've worked a lot of different verticals: education, high performance computing, medical, B2B in general. There's something about the restaurant tech space and that ecosystem that's just, I mean, I'm sure they're all, I could say they're all amazing, but it's small enough to be really intimate. And I think there's a certain personality that's pulled into hospitality anyway.
Yeah.
Combine the two, tech and hospitality, and it's a really cool group. I've had friends in this space for 10 plus years. It's amazing. On the marketing side, it's just fascinating, right? It's, why do people do things rationally and irrationally? And if they're acting irrationally, it's either out of fear or inspiration, the lizard brain stuff, right? So being able to figure out how to drive home messaging that helps people come to a conclusion and a selection, that's really interesting. And it's born out of having carried that bag back early on in the career and saying, hey,
huge advantage.
Right.
You see the whole thing. So outside of Checkmate, what's your thing? Or like you a 10-pin bowler, a skier?
Oh man, a little less skiing than I used to do back when I was in the Northeast, but still do some skiing. About where I am, we've got the Channel Islands off the coast of Southern California. So amazing area to scuba dive in the kelp forest out there. Very cool. So like to do a little bit of scuba diving, and the rest is work and family.
Work and family. It's a good life. Well, Kevin, I appreciate it. I love the way you're thinking about the game and playing the game, and you have the added advantage of having made so many mistakes. Great.
Fortunately, not too many scuba diving.
No, exactly. Hopefully, you keep that nice and safe. So, Kevin, I appreciate your time, and thanks for joining me.
Thank you, my friend.